The morning sun barely pierced through the thick clouds as the massive ship stood ready in its dock, ice crystals already forming along its pristine white hull. The HMS Winterstorm wasn't just another battleship, it was humanity's boldest answer to the question that had kept military leaders awake at night. How would Earth defend itself against unknown threats from space? Standing at the helm, Commander Lai watched her breath form small clouds in the cold air. The ship's temperature control systems were working exactly as designed, keeping the interior at a bone-chilling -15 degrees. The crew had spent months training in these conditions, wearing their specially designed thermal suits that now felt like second skin. Engine room reporting, Commander, crackled the intercom. Blizzard core holding steady at 70% capacity. The pride in the engineer's voice was unmistakable. After all, they were part of something revolutionary, the world's first battleship powered by winter itself. Through the reinforced windows, Commander Lai could see dock workers scurrying around in their heavy winter gear, performing last-minute checks. The Winterstorm's outer hull bristled with what looked like ordinary sensor arrays, but these were actually advanced weather manipulation nodes. Each one could direct and control snowstorms with pinpoint accuracy, turning nature's fury into a weapon. Status report from the weather lab called out the young officer at the communication station. He adjusted his thermal gloves before continuing. Global temperatures have dropped 2 degrees in the past hour. They're saying it's not natural. The commander's fingers tightened around the cold metal railing. They'd all known this day might come, but hoping for more time was human nature. The aliens hadn't announced themselves with radio signals or peaceful delegations. They'd announced themselves by beginning to freeze Earth's atmosphere. In the ship's massive control room, screens displayed thermal readings from around the globe. Blue and purple colors dominated the displays, showing the unnatural cold spreading like spilled ink across continents. Regular ships would be struggling with ice formation in these conditions, but the Winterstorm had been built for exactly this scenario. All hands to battle stations, Commander Lee's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. She watched as her crew moved with purpose, each person knowing their role in the coming storm. They'd practiced this 1,000 times, but now it was real. The weight of actual combat hung in the air, heavier than the frost forming on the external sensors. The ship's artificial climate systems hummed louder, preparing for full power. In the specially reinforced engine room, the blizzard core, a massive sphere of swirling white energy, pulsed with growing intensity. This was technology born from humanity's determination to survive, developed by scientists who dared to dream of controlling winter itself. Warning klaxons suddenly blared throughout the ship. Multiple objects detected entering Earth's orbit, announced the radar operator, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Size and energy signatures match nothing in our database. Commander Lai took a deep breath of the cold air. This was the moment the Winterstorm had been built for. This was what they had trained for. As she looked around at her crew's determined faces, she saw not fear, but readiness. They were about to find out if humanity's gamble would pay off, if their mastery of winter's fury could stand against whatever these visitors had brought from the cold depths of space. Power to all systems, she ordered, her voice clear and firm. Prepare the blizzard core for full activation. As the ship's systems roared to life, she felt the deck vibrating beneath her feet. The temperature dropped even further, and frost patterns spread across the internal walls like delicate art. The next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. But as Commander Lai watched her crew work with practiced precision, she felt a surge of pride. Whatever these aliens had planned, they were about to learn that humans had turned their greatest weakness, their vulnerability to cold, into their greatest strength. The control room of the Winterstorm fell silent as the alien ships emerged. It wasn't like in the movies, no dramatic flashes of light or thunderous sounds. Instead, 12 dark shapes simply appeared against the star-filled backdrop, like ink drops spreading across paper. Their ships looked like massive crystals, each one darker than the night sky itself. Temperature readings are going crazy, reported the science officer, her fingers flying across the frost-covered display. Outside, Earth's atmosphere was changing. City sensors worldwide reported sudden snowfall, even in places that had never seen snow before. The alien fleet wasn't just arriving, they were actively changing our planet's climate. Commander Lai watched through the main viewport as ice crystals formed and spread across the reinforced glass. The regular military channels were buzzing with confusion. Conventional weapon systems were failing in the extreme cold, missiles freezing in their tubes, and electronic systems shutting down. But aboard the winter storm, they were in their element. The colder it got, the stronger they became. "They're positioning themselves in a spiral formation," called out the tactical officer. His breath came out in visible puffs despite his thermal suit. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to do something big. The alien vessels moved with impossible grace, their crystal-like hulls absorbing every scan the winter storm sent their way. Down in the civilian areas, people huddled in their homes, watching through windows as unnatural storms swept across cities. Emergency broadcasts urged everyone to stay inside and conserve heat. This wasn't just an attack, it was an attempt to transform Earth into something more suitable for the visitors. "Main weapon systems on all Earth's defense platforms are freezing up," reported the communications officer. "The Chinese icebreaker fleet is completely stuck. Russian thermal ships are reporting critical failures. One by one, Earth's most powerful military assets were being rendered useless by the extreme cold." The winter storm's crew felt the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. They weren't just another ship, they were quickly becoming Earth's only hope. The blizzard core hummed beneath their feet, actually growing stronger as the temperature dropped further. It was like the ship was coming alive, ready for the fight it was built for. "Look at this," called out the sensor operator. On his screen, detailed scans of the alien ships revealed something fascinating. Their hulls weren't just dark, they were actively absorbing heat from their surroundings. These weren't just ships, they were giant heat sinks, literally freezing space around them. The crew watched in awe as one of the alien ships demonstrated its power. It released a beam of pure cold toward a small meteoroid, freezing it solid before it shattered into countless pieces. The message was clear. They could do the same to any of Earth's cities. But something caught the commander's attention. Each time the alien ships used their freezing weapons, their hulls lit up with a brief pattern of energy. "Those aren't just weapons," she realized aloud. "They're using our own heat against us. They're stealing Earth's warmth and turning it into their power." The discovery spread through the crew like wildfire. This wasn't just an invasion, it was harvesting. The aliens weren't trying to destroy Earth, they were trying to drain it of its thermal energy. Every blast of their weapons made them stronger while making Earth weaker. A junior officer spoke up, his voice steady despite his youth. "So they've never fought anyone who could make things colder than they can?" The question hung in the air, and slowly, understanding spread across the crew's faces. The winter storm wasn't outmatched, it was uniquely suited to fight these invaders. The commander nodded, a plan forming in her mind. The aliens had mastered the art of stealing heat, but they'd never face an enemy who could control the cold itself. The winter storm's blizzard core didn't just resist the cold, it created and directed it. For the first time since the alien ships appeared, a smile crossed her face. "Battle stations," she ordered, her voice firm with newfound confidence. "Let's show these visitors that they're not the only ones who know how to use the cold." Deep in the winter storm's research lab, the ship's lead scientist pushed away from his microscope with shaking hands. He'd been studying fragments of ice crystals formed around the alien ships for hours, and what he'd found changed everything. Running down the freezing corridors, his boots crunching on the frost-covered floor, he rushed to share his discovery with the commander. "You need to see this," he said, bursting onto the bridge, his glasses fogging up from his heavy breathing. The commander followed him back to the lab, where he pulled up detailed scans on the main screen. Their shields aren't just barriers, they're more like thermal regulators. They control temperature the way we control electricity. On the screen, complex patterns of energy danced around the alien vessels. What had looked like random fluctuations now revealed themselves as an intricate system of thermal management. The aliens hadn't just mastered cold, they turned temperature itself into both weapon and shield. "But here's the interesting part," the scientist continued, pulling up another display. "They're used to controlling everything about their thermal environment. Their systems are perfectly balanced." He paused, letting the implications sink in. They've never faced anything that could disrupt that balance. The commander leaned closer to the screen, understanding dawning on her face. The winter storm's blizzard core didn't just create cold, it created chaos in thermal systems. It was like throwing a rock into a perfectly still pond. The ripples would disrupt everything. In the background, the ship's systems hummed with power as the blizzard core continued to protect them from the aliens' atmospheric freezing. Ice formed and melted in beautiful patterns across the lab's reinforced windows, a constant reminder of the battle being fought in the skies above Earth. "Look at these readings from their scout ship," the scientist pointed to another screen. The smaller alien vessel had been circling closer to Earth, probably gathering data. Its thermal field was similar to the larger ship's but simpler. "It's perfect for a test run." The crew gathered around as the scientist explained his theory. The aliens' thermal shields were like a perfectly tuned instrument, but the winter storm could play a note so jarring it would make the whole symphony fall apart. They didn't need to overpower the aliens' technology, they just needed to disrupt its precision. "It's like throwing a snowball into a finely tuned machine," one crew member said, finally understanding. The others nodded, excitement building in the cold air of the lab. They had moved from defense to possibility, from fear to hope. Through the lab's viewport, they could see the alien fleet hanging in orbit, their crystal ships still absorbing heat from Earth's atmosphere. Cities around the world were freezing, but now the winter storm's crew knew they weren't helpless. They had found a way to fight back. The scientist pulled up one final display. A simulation of what might happen if they hit an alien ship with a concentrated blast from the blizzard core. The computer-generated images showed the alien vessel's thermal field collapsing under the chaotic assault of the artificial storm. "We'll only get one chance at this," the commander said, studying the simulation. "They'll adapt quickly once they realize what we're doing." The crew nodded solemnly. The element of surprise would be their greatest weapon. As they prepared to test their theory, the scientist made one final adjustment to the blizzard core's controls. The entire ship seemed to pulse with energy, as if it understood the importance of what was about to happen. Years of research, months of preparation, and humanity's hopes all came down to this moment. The commander looked at her crew, seeing determination replace fear in their eyes. They weren't just fighting against an alien invasion anymore. They were proving that human ingenuity could find a weakness in even the most advanced technology. Sometimes the best way to defeat perfect order was with perfect chaos. "Ready the blizzard core," she ordered, her voice steady and clear. "Let's show them what a real storm looks like." The tension on the winter storm's bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every crew member held their breath as they watched the alien scout ship drift closer. It was smaller than the others, about the size of an aircraft carrier, its dark crystal surface reflecting nothing but somehow still managing to shimmer against the backdrop of stars. "Blizzard core at 90% capacity," called out the engineering officer, his voice barely hiding his nervousness. The massive engine that powered their ship's winter weapons had never been pushed this hard before. Even through their thermal suits, the crew could feel the temperature dropping further. The commander gripped the railing of her command station, ice crystals forming around her gloved fingers. "Begin targeting sequence," she ordered. On the main screen, targeting computers tracked the alien scout's movement, trying to predict the best moment to strike. They would only get one shot at this. Below decks, engineers worked frantically to channel power to the ship's storm generators. Frost covered every surface, and the air itself seemed to crackle with cold energy. The blizzard core's hum grew louder, changing pitch as it reached full power for the first time since its creation. "Scout ship entering optimal range," announced the weapons officer. His display showed the alien vessel clearly now, its thermal shields glowing softly in the infrared spectrum. They had discovered these shields were the aliens' greatest strength and hopefully their greatest weakness. The commander took a deep breath, seeing it freeze in the air before her. Everything they had learned about the aliens' technology led to this moment. If they were wrong, Earth would lose its only real chance at fighting back. If they were right, "All hands, brace for storm generation," her voice echoed through the ship's speakers. The crew grabbed hold of their stations as the winter storm's special systems began to power up. Outside, the space around their ship began to distort as impossible cold began to gather. The first visible sign was a swirling of ice crystals around the ship's hull. Then, like a spreading cloud, the artificial storm began to take shape. It wasn't like any natural storm. This was winter itself given form and purpose, guided by human technology and determination. "Storm reaching critical mass," reported the science officer, her eyes wide as she watched the readings climb. "The core is performing beyond expected parameters." The blizzard core wasn't just working, it was exceeding every prediction their scientists had made. The alien scout ship seemed to notice something was wrong. It began to turn, its own systems powering up in response to the threat. But they had planned for this. The storm was already too large to avoid. "Now," ordered the commander. The weapons officer's finger hit the release control, and the winter storm unleashed its fury. The concentrated blast of supercooled particles and ice crystals shot through space like a lance of winter itself, carrying with it humanity's hopes for survival. Time seemed to slow as they watched the storm strike the alien vessel. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like cracks spreading across a frozen pond, the scout ship's thermal field began to break apart. The perfect balance of its temperature control systems couldn't handle the chaotic energy of the artificial blizzard. "Direct hit," shouted the tactical officer. "Their shields are fluctuating. They're failing." The crew watched in amazement as the alien ship's systems began to shut down one by one, its crystal hull clouding over with impossible frost. The scout ship drifted helplessly, its advanced technology rendered useless by the very cold it had tried to master. Around the bridge, cheers broke out as the crew realized their gamble had paid off. The winter storm's weapons worked even better than they had hoped. Reading no power signatures from the target, confirmed the science officer, her voice shaking with excitement. "The scout ship is completely paralyzed." They had done it, proved that humanity could fight back against these seemingly invincible invaders. But even as they celebrated, the commander's eyes turned to the main alien fleet. They had won this skirmish, but the real battle was just beginning. The other ships would learn from this attack, adapt their defenses. The element of surprise was gone. "Well done, everyone," she said, her proud voice cutting through the celebration. "Now let's prepare for their response. They won't take this lying down." Red warning lights flashed across the winter storm's bridge as the crew prepared for their first real battle. The disabled scout ship still drifted helplessly nearby, but now the main alien fleet was on the move. Their dark crystal ships spread out in an attack formation that looked like a snowflake made of shadow. "They're charging their freezing weapons," called out the sensor officer. The readings on his screen showed massive energy buildups in the alien vessels, temperature dropping rapidly in their target zones. Through the viewports, they could see beams of intense cold shooting from the alien ships, freezing everything in their path. The commander watched as ice formed on the edges of their reinforced windows. The winter storm's own thermal systems were working overtime just to keep the ship functioning. But unlike other Earth vessels, they weren't fighting the cold. They were about to use it. "Blizzard core showing green across all systems," reported the chief engineer through the intercom. His voice was steady, but everyone could hear the tension in it. "Ready to generate storm on your command." The massive engine thrummed beneath their feet, eager to be unleashed again. The tactical display showed the nearest alien warship moving into position. It was 3 times larger than the scout ship they disabled, its crystal hull gleaming with deadly purpose. This wouldn't be like their first success. This enemy was ready for them. "All hands, battle stations," the commander's voice rang through the ship. Crew members rushed to their positions, their boots crunching on the frost-covered deck plates. They had trained for this, but training was one thing, real combat was another. The first alien attack came without warning. A beam of absolute cold struck the winter storm's port side, trying to freeze their system solid. But something unexpected happened. The ship's blizzard core actually absorbed the energy, growing stronger. "Power levels rising," the engineering officer shouted in surprise. The core was converting their attack into usable energy. It was an unplanned advantage, one that brought grins to the faces of the crew. Their ship wasn't just resistant to the cold, it could turn the aliens' own weapons against them. The commander seized the moment. "Target the nearest vessel and prepare for full storm deployment." The weapons officer's fingers flew across his frosted control panel, locking onto the massive alien warship. This time, the winter storm's attack was even more powerful than before. The artificial storm erupted from their bow like a living thing, a swirling vortex of ice and impossible cold. It struck the alien vessel dead center, its chaotic energy disrupting the perfect balance of their thermal shields. The alien ship tried to fight back, its own systems working frantically to maintain control. But the winter storm was relentless, pouring more and more energy into the attack. Cracks began to appear in the crystal hull, spreading like spider webs across its surface. "Their power grid is failing," reported the science officer, excitement clear in her voice. "The storm is overwhelming their thermal regulators." One by one, the alien ship's weapons went dark. Its perfect crystal surface clouded over with frost, just like the scout ship before it. The bridge crew cheered as the massive alien vessel drifted powerless in space. They had done it again, proven that Earth's newest weapon could stand against the invaders. But their celebration was cut short by a new alarm. "Multiple ships moving to surround us," warned the tactical officer. The remaining alien vessels were adjusting their strategy, preparing to attack from all sides at once. They had learned from their companions' defeat and weren't about to make the same mistake. The commander studied the tactical display, ice crystals crackling under her feet as she moved. The winter storm had won its first real battle, but they couldn't keep fighting the aliens one at a time. They needed a new strategy, a way to use their success on a larger scale. "Send word to command," she ordered the communications officer. "Tell them we've proven the Blizzard core works against their largest ships. But we're going to need help to turn this into a real victory." The fate of Earth still hung in the balance, but now they had hope, and a weapon that could make a difference. The entire ship shuddered as another alien blast hit their starboard side. This time, the cold was different, deeper, more intense than anything they'd faced before. The aliens had adapted their weapons, finding ways to make them even more deadly. Hull temperature dropping past safety limits. The warning came from engineering, where frost was creeping across vital systems faster than the crew could deal with it. "They're hitting us with something new, some kind of absolute zero weapon." The commander gripped her station as another impact rocked the ship. Through the viewing ports, she could see zones of perfect darkness where the alien beam struck. Places so cold that light itself seemed to freeze. Their enemies had learned from their earlier defeats and come back stronger. "Blizzard core containment showing strain," reported the chief engineer, his voice tight with worry. The massive engine that powered their winter weapons was struggling to handle these new attacks. Readings that should have been steady were now jumping erratically across the screens. The tactical display told a grim story. The alien fleet had surrounded them in a perfect sphere, each ship firing its weapons in carefully timed sequence. They weren't trying to destroy the winter storm. They were trying to freeze it solid, turn humanity's greatest weapon into a floating ice sculpture. Engineering reports cracks forming in the secondary hull. The damage control officer's voice was almost lost in the sound of groaning metal. The extreme cold was making the ship's structure brittle, threatening to tear it apart. Down in the crew quarters, ice was forming on the walls faster than the environmental systems could prevent it. The ship's artificial intelligence, designed to help manage their winter weapons, was flashing warning after warning across every screen. Something had to change, or they wouldn't survive much longer. "Wait," called out the AI specialist, his eyes fixed on a new reading. "The ship's computer is picking up something interesting. These attacks, they're synchronized with Earth's natural weather patterns." He pulled up a global weather map, showing how the alien strikes matched the planet's atmospheric flows. The commander moved to his station, watching as the data painted a clear picture. The aliens weren't just attacking with cold. They were using Earth's own weather as a weapon, amplifying their power by tapping into natural systems. "That's why the attacks are getting stronger," the science officer realized, frost forming on her clipboard as she spoke. "They're not just freezing us. They're freezing the whole planet and channeling that power into their weapons." But in this discovery lay a possible solution. The winter storm's AI was already calculating new possibilities, showing how they might turn this strategy back against their attackers. If the aliens could use Earth's weather to power their weapons, why couldn't they do the same? "The AI is suggesting we synchronize the Blizzard core with Earth's weather satellites," the engineer reported, his voice mixing excitement with concern. "It could give us the power to match their attacks, maybe even exceed them. but his expression turned grave. "But if we get it wrong?" Everyone knew what he meant. Tapping into Earth's weather systems was incredibly dangerous. One mistake could trigger an ice age, freezing the very planet they were trying to protect. It was a desperate gamble, but they were running out of options. Another hit rocked the ship, and warning alarms blared as more systems began to fail. Ice was spreading through the lower decks, and the blizzard-caused power was failing. They had to make a decision fast. The commander looked at her crew, saw the determination in their frost-covered faces. They had known the risks when they signed up for this mission. Sometimes saving humanity meant taking chances that seemed impossible. "Begin the synchronization," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos of battle. "If we're going down fighting. And if there's even a chance this works," she didn't need to finish the thought. Every person on board knew what was at stake. As the crew rushed to implement their desperate plan, the alien ships continued their relentless attack. But now, instead of just trying to survive, the Winter Storm's crew was preparing to strike back. They were about to find out if humanity's greatest gamble would pay off, or freeze their world solid. Time was running out. In the Winter Storm's main science lab, the lead scientist and his team worked frantically to modify the blizzard-caused control systems. Their fingers were numb with cold despite their thermal gloves, and every breath came out as a cloud of ice crystals. "Global weather patterns are becoming more unstable," reported one of the junior scientists, her eyes fixed on worldwide temperature readings. Across Earth, freak storms were forming as the alien attacks disrupted natural weather systems. Cities that had never seen snow were buried in blizzards, while others faced dangerous ice storms. The ship's AI displayed a complex web of calculations across the main screen, showing how they might tap into these weather patterns. But the numbers were intimidating. Even a tiny miscalculation could have devastating consequences. "The margin for error is almost zero," the lead scientist muttered, frost forming on his goggles as he reviewed the data. They needed to find a way to connect their artificial winter technology with Earth's natural weather systems, but doing it wrong could trigger an unstoppable ice age. Another hit from the alien weapons rocked the lab, sending equipment sliding across frozen tables. Above them, the battle continued, but everyone knew they couldn't hold out much longer. The ship's hull was becoming dangerously brittle in the extreme cold. "Look at this," called one of the team members, pointing to a new reading. "The aliens' weapons, they're not just making things cold. They're actually redirecting heat." It was a crucial observation. The invaders weren't creating cold out of nothing. They were moving heat around, using it like a battery. The lead scientist rushed to the display, ideas forming in his mind. If the aliens could redirect heat, maybe they could do something similar with Earth's weather patterns. Not just tap into them, but actively guide them. "What if we use the blizzard core like a conductor?" he suggested, quickly sketching out his idea. "Instead of fighting Earth's weather, we guide it. Like a conductor leading an orchestra." The concept was simple, but the execution would be incredibly complex. The team sprang into action, reconfiguring the core's control systems. They weren't just making minor adjustments anymore. They were completely changing how the ship's main weapon worked. Instead of generating its own storms, it would amplify and direct the planet's natural weather. "Connecting to weather satellites now," announced the communications officer over the intercom. One by one, links were established with Earth's network of weather monitoring systems. Data began flowing into the ship's computers, showing the full scope of the planet's atmospheric patterns. The ship's AI processed this flood of information, creating new algorithms on the fly. Warning messages flashed across screens. What they were attempting had never been done before. The computers calculated a 40% chance of triggering a global ice age. But they had no choice. Another direct hit from the aliens would destroy the ship, and with it, Earth's last hope. The science team made their final adjustments, double and triple checking every calculation. "If this works," the lead scientist explained to his team, "we'll be able to use Earth's entire atmosphere as our weapon. Every storm, every weather pattern, all working together." The potential power was enormous, but so were the risks. In the background, the blizzard core's hum changed pitch as the new systems came online. The sound was different now, deeper and somehow more natural, as if the artificial winter engine was finally working in harmony with Earth's own weather. The lead scientist took one last look at his calculations, then reached for the ship's intercom. "Bridge, this is the science lab. Modifications are complete. But Commander," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "you should know the risks. If something goes wrong, we won't just lose the ship. We could freeze the entire planet." There was a moment of silence on the channel. Then the commander's voice came back, clear and determined. "Understood. But we're out of options. Prepare for full system activation. It's time to show these aliens what Earth's weather can really do." The science team took their positions, ready to monitor every aspect of the unprecedented experiment. Through the lab's windows, they could see the alien fleet continuing their attack. In a few moments, they would either save humanity or doom it. There was no middle ground. "All stations, prepare for full weather synchronization," the commander's voice echoed through the winter storm's frozen corridors. Every crew member held their breath, knowing these next few moments would determine the fate of their world. The modified blizzard core pulsed with new energy, its rhythm matching Earth's natural weather patterns. On screens throughout the ship, global weather maps showed countless storms converging, drawn together by the ship's advanced technology like iron filings to a magnet. Weather satellites report unprecedented atmospheric activity, called out the science officer. The readings were off the charts. Every storm system on Earth was responding to their call, creating something never seen before in human history. The alien fleet noticed something was wrong. Their attacks faltered as they detected the massive energy buildup around the winter storm. Through the viewports, the crew could see the invaders' crystal ships beginning to move, trying to break their attack formation. "They're realizing what we're doing," the tactical officer reported, his voice tense with anticipation. "But they can't move fast enough." The aliens had become victims of their own strategy. Their ships were too perfectly tuned to thermal energy to ignore what was building around them. A low rumble shook the entire ship as the blizzard core reached full power. Ice crystals danced in complex patterns across every window, and the very air seemed to crackle with winter's energy. The ship's AI reported that the synchronization was complete. They were now connected to every major weather system on Earth. "Now," ordered the commander. The weapons officer's hand came down on the activation control, and for a moment, everything went completely still. Then, like a thunderclap in reverse, the storm began. It started as a swirling vortex around the winter storm, pulling in cold from every direction. The ship became the eye of an impossible storm, a perfect fusion of natural weather and human technology. The vortex grew larger, spreading out into space like a living thing. Energy readings are beyond anything we've ever measured. The science team's excitement was clear even through the ship's crackling speakers. They had created something entirely new. A storm that could exist in the vacuum of space, powered by Earth's entire atmosphere. The alien fleet tried to respond, firing their freezing weapons at full power. But this time, their attacks were absorbed into the growing storm, making it even stronger. The perfect balance they relied on became their greatest weakness as the chaotic energy overwhelmed their systems. Through the swirling ice and snow, the crew watched in awe as their storm engulfed the first alien ship. Its crystal hull, designed to control thermal energy with perfect precision, couldn't handle the raw chaos of Earth's combined weather. Systems failed, weapons went dark, and the mighty vessel drifted helplessly. One by one, the other alien ships fell victim to the storm. Some tried to escape, others attempted to fight back, but nothing could stand against the combined power of Earth's weather. The storm grew until it was visible from the planet's surface, a massive swirling vortex of ice and snow that dwarfed everything around it. "Multiple hull breaches detected in alien vessels," reported the tactical officer, his voice filled with disbelief at their success. "Their thermal systems are completely overwhelmed. They're all shutting down." The crew watched in amazement as the last alien ship lost power, its once gleaming crystal surface now clouded with impossible frost. The mighty invasion fleet hung motionless in space, defeated not by advanced weapons, but by the very force they had tried to master, winter itself. Emergency beacons began flashing from the disabled ships, their crews facing the same cold they had tried to use against Earth. The storm had done more than just defeat them. It had shown them that humanity would not go quietly, that Earth itself would fight back against any invader. The commander looked at her frost-covered crew, seeing pride and amazement on their faces. They had taken the biggest gamble in human history and won. The winter storm had lived up to its name, becoming the center of the perfect storm that saved humanity. "Stand down from battle stations," she ordered, a smile finally breaking through her professional demeanor. "And someone get on the line to Earth. Tell them that winter just saved the world." The bridge of the winter storm was unusually quiet as they watched the disabled alien fleet drift before them. Emergency signals continued to flash from the crystal ships, their crews trapped in the very cold they had tried to use as a weapon against Earth. "Life support systems failing on multiple alien vessels," reported the sensor officer, his voice softer than usual. Even in victory, there was something sobering about seeing their enemies struggling to survive. Temperature dropping to critical levels in their ships. The commander stood at her station, frost still crackling under her boots. They had won the battle, saved Earth from invasion, but now they faced a different kind of challenge. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," she ordered after a moment's thought. The communications officer looked surprised but followed the order. "Channel open, broadcasting on all frequencies." The whole crew waited, wondering what their leader would say to the beings who had tried to freeze their world. "Alien vessels, this is the Earth ship Winter Storm." The commander spoke clearly, her words carried through space to their defeated enemies. "We see your distress signals. If you power down your remaining weapons, we will provide assistance." The crew exchanged glances. After everything that had happened, offering help seemed strange. But there was something right about it, something that proved they hadn't lost their humanity in the heat of battle. Minutes ticked by with no response. Then, suddenly, the main screen lit up with an alien transmission. The being that appeared was surprisingly human-like, though its skin had a crystalline quality that caught the light in strange ways. "Earth vessel," the alien's voice came through the translator, a mix of surprise and dignity in its tone. "We accept your offer." There was a pause then. "We have never encountered a species that could turn our own mastery of cold against us. You have earned our respect." Over the next few hours, the winter storm coordinated a massive rescue operation. Earth ships, no longer afraid of the alien weapons, moved in to help. The blizzard core, still synchronized with Earth's weather patterns, was carefully used to stabilize temperatures around the disabled fleet. In the ship's conference room, the commander met with the alien leader. Both sides shared their stories, their reasons for fighting. The aliens, it turned out, came from a dying world that had frozen over completely. They had been searching for a new home, though their methods of claiming one had been wrong. "We thought your planet's warmth meant weakness," the alien leader admitted, its crystalline features reflecting the room's lights. "We never imagined you would find strength in winter itself." The revelation seemed to have shaken their entire worldview. As the day progressed, something remarkable happened. The very technology that had been used in battle, the winter storm's ability to control and direct cold, became a point of scientific exchange. The aliens' advanced understanding of thermal energy, combined with humanity's innovative approach, held possibilities neither side had imagined. "Perhaps," suggested the alien leader, "we could help each other. Our world is too cold, while others suffer from too much heat. Together, we might find balance." It was an unexpected turn, from invasion to cooperation, from war to hope. The news spread across Earth. The alien fleet would withdraw, but not as enemies. Instead, both civilizations would work together, sharing their knowledge of cold and heat, of winter and warmth. The winter storm's victory had opened a door to something far greater than just survival. Standing at the viewport, watching Earth's weather patterns slowly return to normal, the commander felt a deep sense of pride. Her crew had done more than just win a battle. They had shown that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in weapons or technology, but in the ability to turn adversity into opportunity, to find hope in the darkest winter. "Send word to command," she told her communications officer. "Tell them the winter storm is ready for its next mission." She smiled as she looked at her frost-covered crew. "But this time, we're not going to fight winter, we're going to help shape its future." As the alien ships prepared to depart, now under their own power again, the stars seemed to shine a bit brighter. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious but wiser. The winter storm had proven that even in the coldest darkness, warmth could be found, in courage, in mercy, and in the human heart.